Yeah, I can't wait for the action to start. There was a brief break there, but I mean, I was edging to get back in the seat and edging to commentate with my new buddy Brian, my new gym buddy.
There we are. I will stress that I lift a lot lighter weights than the man on my right, but let's talk about what we've got in front of us now. Bout number 10 here in cage number 2. Atdayev from Bulgaria wearing the gold rash guard in the blue corner, taking on the Russian Ruslan Satiev. And with a name like Satiev, with that wrestling pedigree and coming out of Russia, you'd expect to see the Russian maybe shoot for this, but going up against somebody who's won a world title, taken the title already. That rash guard, that touch is lovely this year from the IMMAF. That really does not only add credence to what they've achieved so far, but if you're staring across the cage from it, it can excite you, it can intimidate you. It's just a beautiful thing to see that we're highlighting the champions' achievements.
Yeah, it can be a psychological advantage for yourself, knowing you've been there, you've travelled this road, and also precipitating that to everybody around you, you know, the intimidation factor. Oh, look at this belly-to-belly suplex here from Satiev, but Arif straight back to his feet, defending the takedown.
We're looking at the lighter weight classes here, so we are still in the flyweight division. You know how bouncy, how energetic they are, but he's trying to lock up this choke here, see if he drops and rolls. Got it on the bicep, he's got it actually on the forearm there. What adjustments would he need to make?
So Arif's working the anaconda choke, so what he wants to do is try and get this to the ground, drag his opponent to the ground, and then roll towards the side of the lock, so roll to his left side. Once he gets there, he's going to try and torque around, almost catch his opponent's legs to finish the choke.
Look how strong Satiev is, though. He's really not giving up that base, pushing on those hips, which is the right thing to do as well. But making Arif work for this. But this is a dangerous position for the Russian to find himself in so early in round number 1.
This is what you're seeing. He'd be a little bit cautious here. He's pushing on the hips. He doesn't want Arif to enable the roll and drag down to the ground. So he's working his way out of this position here. But what he needs to do is separate the lock. He needs to force the hands apart of Arif. So he needs to widen the base and potentially attack that elbow. So the left elbow of Arif to get out of this position.
And Arif, the European world champion, took on Sebastian Gonzalez in the first round in Romania, beat him by unanimous decision. Giacomo Santoro beat him by unanimous decision. And now here in round day 3 of the IMMAF, trying to work on Satiev. So impressed with how Satiev is not giving up that base, though.
I mean, this is the thing. He's in such a dangerous position here. He's got to ride this out. He's got to stay safe. He can't afford Arif to have him to drag him to the ground like this, because those hands are locked up and it will get very tight as soon as he goes to the ground. And
there's any chance of him tapping or being choked out at this point? Does it really need that contact with the ground, pulling those legs in to bend the neck round to stop the blood, stop the oxygen? Is that necessary?
Well, you need some contortion on the neck. So, I mean, this is a choke, so everything needs to be really tight. And to go to the ground and obviously affordance to contort your opponent's neck up. There's potential for a power guillotine with an arm in, very difficult. This is what he's doing
against
here.
The cage
yeah,
as
he's
well.
using the cage as leverage to drive his forearm up into the throat. A different choke, but nonetheless, you could see the finish here. But, I mean, Satiev very, very calm and collected here. He's staying calm. He's pushing away on the hips. He doesn't want Arif to get close to him. And in the end, that defense got him out of that first round.
Yeah, a little shake of frustration in his head as he came out of that, but he's got to be happy he survived that. Arif as well took a split decision yesterday against Abdul Chowdhury, who comes from the UK, that SBG gym. We know how good he is at grappling, so Arif, just by proxy of that, we can tell he's used to handling heavy grapplers like the Russian Satiev. But as they go back to their corner, Arif will be very happy with that round. That was a good round of control. But what would you be advising Satiev now to go into the second round?
So he's got to make sure he keeps his head up, not to dive his head forward. Where your head goes is where your body follows. If you point that in the direction towards your opponent, that's where it's going to go. If you point it to the ground, that's where you're going to follow. He needs to keep his neck safe in these grappling exchanges, so not stick his head out, so Arif can grab a hold of that with those long arms.
So day 3 has brought us some delightful contests so far here at the 2018 World IMMAF Championships, Amateur Championships. And I always struggle with the word amateur there, because day after day, and as the brackets get smaller and smaller, we're seeing the level go up incrementally, not even incrementally, by huge leaps and bounds, and we're seeing tough matchups like this come together. So stunned with the absolute level of talent, and you've been with the IMMAFs for a number of years now. You must have seen the growth, not only just in size, but in quality as well.
Yeah, I mean, every time, every year, everything gets better. The event, the nutrition of the athletes, the cardio, the weight cutting procedures, you know, and the technicality in there, and the fighter IQ is just shining through for me this time around here in Bahrain. They understand when they get caught with certain things what to stay away from, what adjustments to make on the fly whilst they're fighting. And again, this is the amateur level, and they're fighting like pros.
Fighting like pros indeed, and we've got two flyweights here vying for that next step. That step towards another gold jersey at European Championships already in the bag this year for Arif. Atdayev with the Russian team, and we should say with the Russian team as well, this is the biggest team they've ever sent to the IMMAF, so they're really looking to make a statement with this appearance here in Bahrain. But now they're up against the cage. Arif good with those knees, burying them deep into the breadbasket there.
Atdayev needs to get his back off the cage. He can't be offensive off the cage unless he has double underhooks. Oh, look for him to separate, yeah, or turn the position.
Or just use brute force and push Arif back. That was impressive from the Russian.
And you can see there, Atdayev is wearing some wear on the left eye from previous contests. To see if Arif picks up on that and starts to target that left side of the head.
And that's another thing we keep talking about, keep reminding people viewing at home and watching this. This is a 5-day contest, potentially 5 fights in front of these. So you're not just managing yourself physically, but mentally as well. Peaking, weight cuts each morning, whether to take that risk of cutting a lot of weight to make sure that you get that weight advantage in the cage. There's so many factors to a long-form tournament like this.
Atdayev now working the dirty boxing as he gets driven back by Asif from the knee. But, I mean, Arif now working heavy pressure, and the separations are going to take their toll on Atdayev. If he uses brute force every time, it's going to make him tired. It's going to take the toll on his musculature.
Really impressed with the pressure Arif is able to apply to this Russian. We've seen the Russian in earlier rounds dominate with the wrestling, as you'd expect with fighters coming from that region. But Arif really putting on a show of control here and strength. And with those knees as well, looking to punish when he can. Watch that rear leg bury. Oh no, going for a low calf kick there inside. Those double underhooks as well.
Arif staying very heavy, controlling the head of Atdayev. Atdayev is just unable to get past the arms of Arif. He needs to make sure that he's looking for the underhooks, to duck under, to grasp a hold of the legs and work the wrestling. Or in turn separate, and when he separates, he's got to use the strikes to keep the distance and make Arif think twice about coming back in.
Referee seen enough though, wants to see more action. Just 10 seconds left, let's see. Atdayev pushes forward, feels like he's got the work to do. Arif with the control. And for my money, the momentum in this fight seems to be able to just negate the weapons of Atdayev. And we're learning about different countries as well and what they're bringing to the table. And what I've noticed with the Bulgarians and what I know from the Bulgarians I've had the pleasure of meeting and training with or talking to, they've got a really strong, it almost flies under the radar, grappling background. Their combat sambo team, I believe, is gold medaled and silver medaled in the Europeans, world medaled, I think it was last year or the year before as well. So that culture, that combat sambo culture, and we know that sambo transfers so well into mixed martial arts, right?
Also, if you know how to grapple, you know what to stay away from, it opens up your striking game. If you can nullify your opponent's takedowns, it really opens up the hands, and it gives your opponent another whole degree to work with. He's got to worry about the hands and the takedowns. And then the submission game from Arif. I mean, Atdayev has got his work cut out here.
So we move into round number 3, 3 minutes left for these two flyweights to claim their spot in the next heat, the next bracket. Day 4 of this IMMAF 2018 World Amateur Championships. They touch him up. Arif from Bulgaria in the gold rash guard. Atdayev in the red from Russia. Nice outside leg kick from Atdayev. That's almost what he needs to do. Throw some power in the strikes. Get some respect. Oh, that's lovely. Make Arif cautious when he's coming in.
Yeah, he's trying to take the spring out of the step, but I mean, you could argue that Atdayev has got to do something decisive here. To go low with those leg kicks is beautiful, but he's got to switch it up. Work to the head. So fake low, go high, look for the finish.
Now he's got the pressure up against the cage. This is one of the first times we've seen him with this position, but look at the way Arif is working his way around. Trying to free that upper arm.
And this is the difference up against the cage here. Arif understands he needs to leave with the head up. He needs to dive for the underhooks. He needs to circle off the cage, and we wasn't seeing that from Atdayev.
Good pressure again from Atdayev, but no real progression in the position. And like you said, it feels like he needs something decisive in this third and final round. Again, with the commentators, this is in the hands of the judges if it does go the distance. But from the control that Arif has been able to impose in that first and second round, you'd assume that that would be the way it was going so far.
Yeah, that word control is perfect, Brian. I mean, Arif has controlled this fight to minimize damage. You've got to remember, he's going to want to go on to the next stage, and he's wearing that gold uniform for a reason. He understands the tournament situation here. Limit the damage, limit the energy expenditure, be fresh for the next round.
Absolutely. And this is grueling against the cage, but again, nothing really progressing from Atdayev. No damage being taken from Arif. And now that the real opponent they're against is the clock, because these short 3-minute rounds can only take one swing of momentum, one decisive move, and that's all the judges need to give it in the favour of either corner.
Atdayev now working to trap that left leg of Arif, but he's keeping his base nice and wide, keeping very heavy on the top half of the body of Atdayev. Atdayev has got to work in this position. He's got to chase after a finish.
It's right in his corner as well. You'd want to see them be a bit more animated, trying to G this up, but it's easier said than done, because Arif is doing the right things to control, as you'd expect on the ground, to control posture, to stop progression, but Atdayev really has either got to just let go and make something happen here. It's all well and good getting your way and maybe getting a little round back of control, showing Arif that you've got some strength, you've got some grappling of your own. But that might not be enough to take this, so moving forward in this bracket, and it's a long way to come from Russia.
Interesting to see Atdayev is he's just sitting there against the cage. I mean, you could argue that Arif's got a traditional headlock. There's so many takedowns, belly to belly, single legs, inside reaps. There's so many you can take advantage of in that position. And he's just simply, happy just to lay on here and coast out the rest of the round, which, he can't do. He needs to look for a finish. Yeah,
you'd be amazed if he was confident going into this round that he's got 2 in the books, or even 1 in the books for the through. But the smile from Arif as he comes, slightly frustrated demeanour from Atdayev. Not the fight I expected to see. Really impressed with the level of grappling. And by that, I'd seen Atdayev wrestle with people earlier, and his takedowns were dominant. He was able to get that top position pretty easily with other opponents. But in this fight with Arif, and credit to him, and it might only be a flyweight frame, but he was really very, very strong in that position and used the cage well, put his head position right. Technically, it was good, so didn't have to expend as much effort to create as much force as Atdayev was in the end of that third round. This one will go to the judges, South.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, over cage number 3. After 1 minute and 1 second of round number 1. The winner by guillotine in the red corner from Kazakhstan, Atdayev. Ladies and gentlemen, over on cage 2, we go to the judges' scorecards. For your winner by unanimous decision, in the blue corner representing South Africa,